before I send it back, any last messages to the astronauts before they take off?
I think just great luck. Be present. I mean, I'm so excited. I love the messaging that we keep receiving from the staff here at Blue Origin is don't film it through your phones, look through your eyes, be as present as possible. They will supply all the content that we need and to give to our families. But through your eyes, be as present as possible. They will supply all the content that we need and to give to our families. But I love just being in the moment.
Yeah, same. And we're gonna. Excited. Yeah, we're so excited. We're.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. In Cobain, can you hear the spheres singing songs off station to station? And Alderon's not far away, it's Californication.
That just made it worse. Constantine in 321 brought Christianity into paganism. And we became pagans. And we worship the sun. We don't even know what day the Sabbath is, and yet in the Bible we're commanded to understand and keep the Sabbath day holy. And we don't even know which day of the week it is, so for all you Sunday worshipers out there, I'm sorry. I truly am. That's why they had to rush on Friday to crucify Christ and get him up and get him dead before the sun set on Friday night. Okay? You gotta understand God's calendar. Deck is 10, it ain't the 12th month. Okay? Please understand. They have lied to you about everything. We're truth seekers in this movement, if nothing else. If we don't call ourselves anything else, we seek the truth. Are we always right? No. We're not always right. We're striving to always be right. We strive for it. That's what we're commanded to do. We're just imperfect sinners. We're men and women who make mistakes, but we keep trying. We don't give up. God knows I've had more than my share of opportunity to quit. You won't believe how many times Costa Rica or Argentina have called my name. Well, I don't quit. Ever. Ever.
I am majorly depressed. I'm broke as shit. I am tired as shit. But I will I'll still keep showing up every fucking day for you guys.
So you know all about it then?
Yes, I know all about it. I'm like the head of the company, Mark.
I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I'll be shining wherever you are. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. You're so close to me, but I'm so far.
You went to space in 2021.
Well, they fuel the rocket with hydrogen, and I have seen innumerable times the film on the Hindenburg tragedy, burning, the humanity of it all, people running.
I've seen footage of it.
You know what's burning?
The hydrogen?
Hydrogen.
Oh, the humanity.
And that's what's in the rocket that I'm sitting on top of. Made me very nervous.
And can you confirm that the Earth is round? Because there's been a lot of talk that the Earth is flat. Are you able to tell that from space?
No, I have not seen complete proof that the Earth is round. You can't tell me that it's round with any great proof, other than somebody said, oh, I went around it. Well, that's their journey. My journey is, as far as I'm concerned, the Earth is flat.
Interesting.
Began. A series of 31 missiles were shot straight up into the sky to test how high humans can actually reach. They quickly figured out not far at all.
It seems that whenever they were shooting these missiles up into the sky, they were actually interacting with different layers of this plasma field or this electromagnetic phenomena, and it seems to have fluid-like properties. As it actually hits a certain portion of this force field, if you will, it begins to disperse and seek equilibrium based on the impedance of the electromagnetic layers.
Why is it when we review this footage that these things are exploding? It looks like they're hitting a barrier.
Testing the strength of the firmament, and they weren't able to penetrate it.
What's going on there? What is this? In my opinion, I think that they were trying to find a way to possibly get out.
Because you know in a moment they could all
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I don't care if people look at me like I'm on drugs, because yes, bitch, I am. And this is the whole fucking point.
Schizophrenia is a state where there is a break from reality, and so this can show up as we call them the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. These include hallucinations, hearing something or seeing something that's not there, usually auditory hallucinations. Paranoia, people can have complex fears. Delusions, which we call fixed false beliefs. People get an extremely unshakable but completely implausible idea about something. Sometimes it relates to themselves, sometimes to the world. These we call the positive symptoms, break from reality as we know it.
Just a lucky guess. Do you have any narcotics in the vehicle?
No. Other than a little bit of pot, no.
Okay.
But
you might have a little bit of pot?
yes,
Okay, that might be inside the vehicle?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. Except for maybe in the ashtray, a couple of roaches. But no, I haven't smoked any pot tonight.
You haven't smoked any pot tonight?
No.
You haven't smoked any pot tonight?
No.
Holy mackerel.
Sometimes the best way to say something is to say nothing at all. Remember, no response is a response. Some people don't deserve or need an explanation from you. Some people, they know you're right. They just want you to go crazy trying to prove it. Other people are simply committed to misunderstanding you. No matter what you say, no matter what you explain, no matter what you demonstrate or prove, they're not going to get it because they've already set their mind, I don't want to hear it. You don't need to explain yourself. Give people distance. Be okay with giving them space. Because when you give people space, you give them an opportunity to self-reflect, to actually look within and ask themselves, how am I coming off here? Is my perspective actually correct? You don't need to explain yourself. Let your energy, let your results speak for you.
There's no actual benefit to sonic consistency in 2025, and people only really want you to niche down because they're uncomfortable with themselves and they only want to show you a part of them. But nah, fuck that. I'm gonna drop what I want, and I'm gonna, like, who knows, after this I might get a real job and drop off the face of the earth. But what's the point of pandering to an audience that's not there?
It's a brand new groove.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs won't ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, leave millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvest in our people. My family also benefit from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare cost, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave poverty made in China, while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies, while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
Who are we?
The Jewish people.
Who are they? Do we need they?
My name is Donald Trump, and I'm a big fan of Israel. And frankly, a strong prime minister is a strong Israel. And you truly have a great prime minister. In Benjamin Netanyahu, there's nobody like him. He's a winner. He's highly respected. He's highly thought of by all. And people really do have great respect for what's happened in Israel. So vote for Benjamin. Terrific guy, terrific leader, great for Israel.
The world has been led to believe that the Wailing Wall is a sacred remnant of the Second Temple, a place where God's presence still lingers. But this narrative falls apart under historical and archaeological scrutiny. The structure commonly revered today is, in truth, a surviving wall of the Roman military compound known as Fort Antonia, not the Holy Temple. The actual temple stood to the south, built over the Gihon Spring, a requirement for temple purification rituals, which the Roman compound did not meet. The protruding rock beneath the dome of the rock, often mistaken for the foundation stone of the temple, was in fact the central part of Fort Antonia. In other words, the Jews today are not praying at the remains of God's temple. They are praying at the wall of a Roman fortress. But the deception goes deeper. The rituals performed at the Wailing Wall are rooted not in biblical faith, but in the 13th century occult system of the Kabbalah, as elaborated in the Zohar and further mystified by the Hasidic movement. The supposed divine presence they seek at the wall is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is the Shekhinah, a feminine emanation in Jewish mysticism. She is described in erotic, intimate terms, often as a divine consort, with whom spiritual union is sought through the act of prayer, a practice called kavana, where physical movement, like the back and forth thrusting you see, mirrors an esoteric sexual ritual intended to unite the Shekhinah with the Ein Sof, the infinite masculine force of their God concept. This is not worship. It's a metaphysical sex act disguised as devotion. It is an inversion of divine truth, rooted in mysticism that Scripture calls an abomination. And this is where it collides with our politics. Nearly every major political figure, presidents, prime ministers, global influencers, must perform their rite of passage at the Wailing Wall, hands pressed against stone, heads bowed in reverence. They are not just pandering to voters or honoring tradition. They are knowingly or unknowingly participating in an occult ritual, submitting themselves at the very seat of the synagogue of Satan. Scripture is unambiguous. In Acts 17:24, it says, God does not dwell in temples made with hands. Much less would he dwell in a Roman fortress surrounded by rituals that glorify a false god and mystical union. It is spiritual prostitution. Our leaders are not just shaking hands with global powers. They are shaking hands with the devil.
Don't forget Benjamin Netanyahu. And I have another thing I want to tell to the Jewish people. You are a God-fearing, good people ruled by Satan-worshipping gangsters, okay? The Israeli flag should have been the menorah. Instead,
you have a satanic symbol, okay? That is a satanic symbol on your flag. That is not a Jewish symbol. Why isn't the menorah on the Israeli flag? I'll tell you why. Because the Rothschild family who created Israel worship Lucifer. They worship Satan. They don't worship Yahweh. They're not real Jews. Their real name is Bauer. They're using you. And you're making fools of yourself by going along with this insane plan. Hurry up and arrest those criminals who have taken over leadership of your society. This is not a joke. There's enough evidence out there for everybody to know it's true. It's all over there. Anybody who has done any research in the well-documented, thoroughly proven facts will know that a criminal gang has controlled your financial system for the past 300 years, and they are planning genocide, and they must be stopped.
Get vaccinated. Now.
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 Be smart. Be responsible. Get vaccinated.
The Jews were behind the invention and creation of these COVID vaccines that are the...
I don't believe that this is being kept secret from us simply to protect methods. I think it's being kept secret from us for deeper reasons. The intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it.
What is this?
I want to know about that. What is that?
Like, what actually is this?
What is it?
Well, it's sort of...
current non-Jewish Messiah was chosen to be of service to the Jewish people and the Jewish Messiah. President Trump's right ear was grazed in a symbolic gesture of Exodus 21:6, where the Torah states that a servant who wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced. Trump was designated as God's servant and anointed one, just like Cyrus the Great almost 2,400 years ago. We have clarified in several videos that the absolute deadline for the redemption is by the end of the Jewish year 5787, which corresponds to October 2nd, 2027, 1,167 days from today. Thus, the redemption will surely occur during Donald Trump's tenure. And I have good reason to believe Donald Trump was chosen to be the one to redeem the sins of Esav through offering his assistance in rebuilding the Holy Temple on the Temple Mount and establishing the Jewish kingdom over all of mankind in Jerusalem. Perhaps it is no accident that the numeric value of Donald Trump in Hebrew is the same as Messiah, son of David, Mashiach ben David, 424.
The death penalty, the guillotine with blades.
This evil anti-Semitic attack is an assault on all of us. It's an assault on humanity. And those seeking their destruction, we will seek their destruction. Now, when you have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one or another group, we have to bring back the death penalty. They have to pay the ultimate price. They have to pay the ultimate price. They can't do this.
Did he actually say that?
We have to bring back the death penalty.
No.
They have to pay.
No. If you put the death penalty as a barrier of criticism for a group of people, a very tiny group of people, that group will be untouchable.
Mr. America First, Donald Trump, being dog-walked by a foreign government, just like Biden was, by the way. But Donald Trump has allowed it to get even further, to the point where he's rounding up doctoral students because of op-eds that they've published. If you don't want to be called out for stealing land, I don't know, maybe stop stealing land. That's it. It's simple. It is ridiculous. So if you want the entire world to stop saying negative things about Israel, the Israeli government, with the help of the Israeli Defense Forces, should stop stealing land. They're occupying huge swaths of Syria right now. They attempted to steal land in Lebanon and failed. I'm sure they're going to try that again. Obviously, they have encroached on Palestinian territory again and again and again with illegal settlements. They have driven Palestinians out of their homes in the West Bank and continue to do so. If you don't want to be called out for doing these things, then don't do these things. But the idea that the Israeli government is going to continue engaging in this behavior and the rest of us need to be censored by our government about it, that is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. And for all the American citizens who are standing by watching others get rounded up like this for simply expressing themselves in op-eds, you better hold on to your butts because they're going to come for you at some point. I promise you that.
The state of Israel is actually connected to America in a very arcane and secret way. So the state of Israel is connected to the American federal system. That's why America sends billions, incredible amounts of money. Why? Now, we know that Israel is very important because of strategically where it sits on the trade routes to control the flow of oil, drugs, diamond, the control of money, banking, fraternities, controlling the flow of commerce and business in the world. But you've got to give the people who are going to go over there and lose their lives in war, you've got to give them a reason. So we tell them that it's religious. It's the Lord's chosen people, the Lord's people. And the Lord himself has chosen Israel. And we give them a line. You'd be surprised what Americans love. They love that kind of stuff. And the Lord Jesus was there, and all the great prophets and all of that. And so we have to protect that little country, Israel, because it's the Lord's will.
To be assimilated into English life. And although they retained their interest in Judaism and Jewish life, they didn't think it was a good thing that this national home should be established in Israel. So it was something that divided my family, as with many other families.
I wonder, as somebody who moves in the highest echelons of British society and is very close to Israel, whether you in your life feel a tension between concern for Israel and loyalty to Britain?
No, I don't personally feel that. I mean, I've been completely committed to Israel since the early 1960s and have been there every year since. So I don't feel that conflict, but I, of course, feel a huge loyalty to Great Britain.
Just tell us a little bit more about Walter, the second Lord Rothschild, because he was an unusual and colourful character.
He was a deeply eccentric man, but from a very early age his passion was collecting. He rode about Tring Park on a giant tortoise. He had a zebra carriage.
A carriage pulled by zebras?
Yes. He collected on a massive scale birds, insects, fleas,
it was
butterflies.
The largest single collection created by a single individual.
I think that's true. I think certainly in Great Britain, I think probably anywhere, he was the greatest collector of ornithological material.
His niece, Miriam, writes that for 2 years, as one of his eccentricities, he didn't open any of the letters that were sent to him and stuffed them away into wicker baskets. And it does make you wonder what would have happened if the Balfour Declaration, the letter had been one of those letters that he'd actually,
yes,
stuffed.
That's true. At that stage, and it's very difficult to quite understand why, he had taken a deep interest in what was happening about the possibility of Balfour Declaration. So maybe those letters would have got to the top of his file.
I just want to revisit for a moment your cousin Dorothy, who you mentioned, who at an extraordinarily young age, still in her teens, played such a critical role as a go-between and and a facilitator for Chaim Weizmann. Can you say a little bit about
Well,
her?
she married my cousin Jimmy when she was 17.
So this is your cousin Dorothy, Dolly.
Yep, Mrs. James de Rothschild.
And from her teenage years onwards, she was a major supporter of Israel, wasn't she?
Major supporter. I mean, she worshipped her husband, who'd been deeply committed, son of Baron Emal. It was due to him, I think, that she became interested. But once she became interested, she became passionately interested. After his death, she became even more committed. She just wanted to carry out his wishes and what he cared deeply about. And then she had her own personality, a deeply good human being who was quite unselfish. She devoted herself to this place, to Israel, and to a few friends, and had a wonderful life. And you can read letters from her to Weizmann and from Weizmann to her when she was only 17. And what she did, which was crucially important, was to connect up Weizmann with the British establishment.
I think she also trained him in how to deal. She helped educate how to
and it's
conduct
extraordinary
himself.
at that age, but she did sort of tell Weizmann, how to kind of integrate, how to insert himself into British establishment life, which he learned very quickly.
So I'm here in the Waddesdon Manor archives, where there is a treasure trove of remarkable documents from the time of the Balfour Declaration. We have the correspondence here between the teenage Dorothy and her husband James, and it's really a love story. Here Dorothy is writing to James. She says, "Jimmy, I thought I would not like one day to pass without giving you a piece of news you have never heard before. I love you." But of course their correspondence wasn't just romantic correspondence. Here we have detailed letters describing her dealings with Zionist leaders, her advice and her suggestions regarding the conferences of the Zionist movement. And here we have a letter that the young Dorothy, still not 20, sent to Dr. Chaim Weizmann, where she's talking about the meetings that she's arranged for him. And as we've heard, she was helpful in training and preparing him to enter into the highest echelons of British society to advance the cause of the Zionist movement. And she was an important character in your life as well. She really introduced you to Israel in some way.
She was a crucially important character in my life. I became a trustee of Yad Hanadiv over 50 years ago.
Which is the Rothschild Philanthropic Foundation.
Yes, being our foundation. And I think I first went in 1962.
Can you share with us your sense of what things have been changing in Israel since that first visit?
Yes. As Israel, I think, became more and more successful in all sorts of ways, industrially successful, absorption successful, technologically successful, great universities. The problems with the wars that took place, being the clearest examples, of security became more paramount. And so you did see a shift in Israel from kind of the liberal Western place that it had been in the early 60s to something of a very different character. And you also have a shift, of course, between communities in Israel. I mean, Israel is a patchwork of different immigrants from different countries. And you have the religious, you have the non-religious, you have a town like Tel Aviv, which is attractive to the kind of business community, to what I would call ordinary city life. And then you have Jerusalem, which remains a very religious city and full of conflict between Arab neighbors and itself.
Those internal issues within the fabric of Israeli society are one of the main focuses of Yad Hanadiv. Can you mention just one or two of the projects that feel to you most significant?
Yes, we do a great deal of work on education, a great deal of academic work. We keep going at Ramat Hanadiv, the garden where Baron Edmond was eventually buried. We're on the point of building the new National Library of Israel. I have two unexpected ones, perhaps. If you take the Orthodox community, it's important that they have employment. And we're trying to develop programs which it's possible for them to undertake. Similarly, you have a problem with Arab unemployment, and we set up jointly with the government employment centres to facilitate greater employment of Arabs within Israel. And so we're an active foundation trying to help with these fissures in Israeli life and to do some good.
And we're sitting here looking forward to the 100th anniversary of this significant letter. If I can just ask you to think about the next centennial, 100 years' time, and just maybe share some of your hopes, your aspirations about where Israel will be.
What does one hope for? One, of course, hopes for a peaceful relationship with Israel's neighbors, and that's going to be the most difficult matter of all to achieve. But even now you can see, with the disarray in the Middle East and the importance of relationships that Israel is developing, not only with Jordan, but also with Egypt and indeed with Saudi Arabia, even if they're not publicized because of the Sunni-Shiite war. There's hope. And I think if you take the need of Arab nations to have intelligence help, and if on the other hand you take compassion and generosity coming from Israel to Palestinian territories and its less fortunate neighbors, there are grounds for optimism, and I am an optimist.
Lord Rothschild, thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you.
Now, I hear people today saying that Trump is the Antichrist or Putin is the Antichrist. That's people that know about as much about the Bible as I know about lobotomies. I could not do a lobotomy on you except with a machete, and I'm afraid you wouldn't walk away from it. There are people spouting that this person or that person is Antichrist. We're going to show you in a little bit, Antichrist is going to be a Syrian Jew. He's not going to be somebody from the United States. He's going to be somebody from Israel. And he's going to be accepted as Jesus Christ to the majority of the world, especially by Israel.
Late yesterday, President Trump signed executive orders targeting two former officials who criticized him. Escalating his retribution campaign, the president directed the Justice Department to investigate Miles Taylor, a former Homeland Security official, and Christopher Krebs, a top cybersecurity official overseeing elections, both political appointees during Trump's first term. The president accused Taylor without evidence of treason.
I think it's a very important case, and I think he's guilty of treason, if you want to know the truth, but we'll find out.
Jewish Americans like me, who are highly critical of Israel, the administration is saying there are good Jews and bad Jews. And good Jews are the ones who support Israel's actions in Gaza. And bad Jews are the people like me. We are suddenly at the center of politics, of U.S. politics. It's never good to be in the crosshairs for us. And we are being used to destroy democracy. The history books are going to be harsh unless we Jewish Americans can say, this should not be done in our name. Finally, by focusing on us, they're erasing the atrocities and horrors that are happening in Gaza. And they're shifting the true victims here.
You know, Netanyahu, we are lions. Yeah, right, you are liars, but we are the ones funding you, arming you, paying for all of this. That's the United States. And this is weird to me because we say yes to defend our ally. No. We're doing their foreign policy, which makes no sense. which doesn't lead to any peace, which leads to basically a war zone across the Middle East. And we say this is good for us? Why is this good for us? What's the United States getting out of any of this? We haven't gotten anything out of any of this, except...
It was no enemy that tried to sink the Liberty. It was America's ally, Israel, then fighting its Arab neighbors in the Six-Day War.
The attack was obviously deliberate. I consider it this cold-blooded murder of American sailors that day.
Yet Israel insists it was a tragic case of mistaken identity. He too was reassured by the presence of the Israeli planes.
I remember vividly looking out through the portholes, looking down on the 01 level, and seeing all the officers sunbathing. And at the same time, we were being overflown, and I remember feeling very good and very warm inside that we were safe. They knew who we were. We were not a stranger out there that day.
Confident that the Israelis knew who they were, the Liberty men relaxed. A new flag was flying, visibility was perfect, and they'd received no orders to leave the area. That sense of security was about to be brutally shattered. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the officers on the bridge spotted 3 Delta Wing Mirage jets.
I saw them come at us. In fact, I was looking through the porthole when the jets came down and leveled off on us at attack attitude.
This one's entitled Seek and Destroy!
Never again will 1.5 million Jewish children be turned into soap and ash and lampshades.
Israeli forces are under intense pressure to explain the deaths 10 days ago of 15 emergency workers who were killed during a call-out in their Red Crescent ambulances in Gaza after accusations some may have been executed. The bodies have only been recovered recently. Colleagues who retrieved them believe some had their hands and even their feet bound before they were killed. One survivor, a paramedic, has contradicted Israeli claims that the ambulances came towards the soldiers with their lights off and no identification. The accounts and the pictures in this report are distressing.
ITV News has obtained these pictures showing Sunday's retrieval of the bodies of the 15 rescue workers killed by the IDF in southern Gaza a week earlier. The dead were in ambulances and a fire engine and were responding to an overnight emergency call-out. The bodies of the men and the remains of their vehicles stayed buried and untouched for a week because it took that long for the IDF to allow a recovery operation to take place. The footage we obtained shows one of the recovery team claiming to have found evidence that the dead man he's helping to dig out had been tied up before being killed. This is a civil defense member. His legs were tied. I just untied his legs. This is an execution, he said. The retrieval team claim that later in hospital they took these photographs which appear to show bindings on a victim's wrist. We have also interviewed a doctor who examined 3 of the bodies.
They were tied both hands, and we could see the kind of tight that it was tightly in their hands, not their legs, their hands. Just their hands were tightened.
8 of the 15 killed were paramedics, and today we spoke to one of their colleagues who survived the massacre. He was in an ambulance dispatched from a field hospital run by a British charity.
was the assistant paramedic sitting in the back. When the shooting started, I lay down to take cover. I didn't hear a word from my colleagues, only their last breaths. Suddenly, all the lights in the vehicle went off. I heard talking in Hebrew and the side door opened. They were special forces in military uniforms, carrying weapons and wearing night vision goggles. Their weapons had green lasers.
The Israelis claim they opened fire on the emergency vehicles because they were advancing suspiciously and had their headlights and flashing lights turned off.
That's not true. Under any circumstances, whether it's just moving a sick person, whatever it is, we turn on the siren lights and the inside and outside lights, and we turn on the siren. Everything is clearly visible.
There has been no IDF response to the claims in this report beyond confirmation that they are, quote, checking.
Bitch, you know who I am. You fucking know who I am. I've had just as many celebrities inside of me as you. Okay? Fucking clown, and everybody thinks we're both fucking pervs and weirdos. Okay?
This is the play. This is the play. Okay, the quarterback. 2 receivers lined up to the left, 1 to the right. There's a flanker lined up to the left, behind the quarterback.
Oh, yeah?
He gives the ball. No, he doesn't. He doesn't get the ball. The receiver goes all the way over there to the left. Once the quarterback has the ball, he fakes to the left. No, he fakes to the right. He doesn't fake. He thinks about fake. He pretends to fake. I don't know where I am. I can't breathe. Oh, this room is getting smaller. I have to sit down.
Breaking overnight, Iran's supreme leader issuing a new warning to the United States after President Trump threatened to bomb Tehran. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warning that America will receive a strong blow if it acts on President Trump's threat over negotiations on a new nuclear deal. News Nation's Tom Dempsey has the latest from Washington. Tom, good morning to you. We're starting to really get a clearer picture here of the president's plans to turn back the clock on Iran's nuclear program.
That's right. Good morning, Mark. Some big comments coming from President Donald Trump, who says that if Iran does not make a deal to rein in its nuclear program, the United States may resort to bombing the country. He made these comments during a recent interview with NBC News. Obviously, a lot of attention on this, with President Trump putting it bluntly, quote, if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing, and it will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. But Iran's own president says the country has no plans to directly negotiate with the United States, writing, quote, we don't avoid talks. It's a breach of promises that has been caused issues for us so far. They must prove that they can build trust. But President Trump made it clear over the weekend he will not back down.
And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran. I would prefer a deal to the other alternative, which I think everybody in this plane knows what that is. And that's not going to be pretty.
During his first term, President Trump pulled the United States out of a deal with Iran that put strict limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. But concerns have grown about Iran developing a nuclear weapon. President Trump sent a letter to Iran's supreme leader pushing for a deal after the UN's nuclear watchdog group, the International Atomic Energy Agency, reported earlier this year that Iran has accelerated its production of near weapons-grade uranium. Now, Iran insists that its program is for peaceful purposes, but really adding a lot onto the tension right now, Marky, is recent United States strikes against Houthi targets, with the United States accusing Iran of providing money and weapons to the terrorist group.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, not under Israel, not under blackmail.
Do you believe that the Gentiles, the Goyim, will one day become the slaves of the Jews?
It's not a belief, it's part of the Torah.
אתה חושב שהגויים יהיו עבדים של היהודים יום אחד?
אמורים להיות.
אוקיי, מה זאת אומרת? כאילו, אמורים להיות?
לפי מה שכתוב בתורה, הגויים אמורים להיות העבדים שלנו.
האם אתה מאמין שהגויים יהיו עבדים של היהודים יום אחד?
כן, זה כתוב בתורה.
If you are a Noahide, meaning you don't believe in Jesus or any of that other garbage, you don't believe in any other false religions, false idols, any of that stuff, no idolatry, you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and you live by the 7 Noahide laws, guess what? You have a place in the world to come. That's as simple as that, okay?
If you do not keep these 7 laws, you should be killed in this world, and you will not have a share in the world to come.
Idol worshipping, death penalty for Jews and non-Jews. Breaking Shabbat, death penalty for Jews, no penalty for Goyim. They're not allowed to keep Shabbat. Stealing for a Jew has to pay double. Stealing for a Goy, death penalty. Jew eats an animal that is alive, moving in a plate, like the Chinese do. He gets a punishment from the Torah, but no death penalty. If a Goy eats a mouse that moves in a plate like the Chinese do, with the soy sauce, like this, is moving in a plate, death penalty for the Goyim, for something like that.
Are non-Jews obligated to keep the 7 Noahide laws?
Well, the nations of the world, every person in the world has to keep the 7 Noahide laws.
The Torah said, the Gemara said, and in many other places, if a person keep mitzvah tzitzit, if you're wearing tzitzit every single day, you're going to have 2,800 slaves. Right? One is going to wash your shoes, one is going to brush your teeth, one is going to brush your hair, one is going to take you an Uber. I mean, we're going to have so many slaves that we don't have to do anything just to learn Torah. So the rest of the Goyim will be disappear from the world if they didn't do mitzvot, the 7 mitzvot of Noah.
When Mashiach comes, what will happen to those people who are neither Jewish nor Noahide?
Atheists, agnostics, Buddhism.
Idolaters.
Yeah, idolaters, right.
So, as we mentioned, what happens? A third of the people die straight away.
Poof.
Idolaters.
So now we're talking about Thanos and the whole thing where he just
right,
like,
exactly.
Serious? Are you
Like
serious?
that.
That's crazy.
Like that.
Wow.
That's it.
Now I'm wondering if the people who created that movie were Jewish or not. Who knows? Maybe.
Hashem is speeding up the process of redemption. We know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself told us that we are in the last generation of exile, the first generation of Mashiach. This was said over 30 years ago. So imagine how much closer we are right now. When we take this into our hearts, we're going to get excited and we're going to realize that all of the events that are actually taking place in the world right now are a sign of Mashiach's coming.
Number 2, it's permissible to cheat non-Jews by withholding their wages. The Talmud states, as for one who withholds the wages of a hired laborer, for a Gentile to do so to another Gentile, and for a Gentile to do so to a Jew is prohibited, but for a Jew to do so to a Gentile is permitted. Number 3, it's permissible to cheat non-Jews by not paying back loans from the non-Jews. This is also in the Talmud. Abrogating a loan owed to a Gentile is permitted because it doesn't actually entail taking money. Number 4, it's permissible for courts to trick non-Jews in favor of Jews. Here, the Talmud mentions the rabbis disagreeing, right? There's a disagreement. You can read the passage on the slide, but basically Jewish judges should try to find some excuse to make sure the Jew wins the case over the non-Jew.
In the Torah, there's no such thing, freedom of speech. You don't let Nazis talk. You don't let infidels talk. There's no such thing, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is for Moshe Rabbeinu, for the Chachamim, for the rabbis. The wicked people, you don't let them speak.
So I got a quick and fun, lighthearted question for you, Charlie. So I know you gave a speech in Jerusalem earlier this year.
Yes, I did.
Were there any like awesome, fun dance parties that you guys had afterwards? 'Cause I heard that Israelis are some of the best dancers in the world. I mean, if you guys don't believe me, just Google dancing Israelis. It's insane how good they're dancing. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Israel's a beautiful country, a great country too.
It is. They're our greatest ally.
Correct. Thanks for being here tonight. Next question.
Fuentes or you a coward?
Thank you for being here tonight. Next question.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City has not gone away. Investigation of their presence has led to questions about whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil. We're joined now by ABC's John Miller with an exclusive report this evening.
That's right, Elizabeth. This is a case that took the FBI and the CIA more than 2 months to sort out, while 5 Israelis waited in jail. It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day? The men said they were just taking pictures at the time. They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind. In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation.
Nations, democracies don't go to war easily, and they usually debate and argue before they do. Sometimes they have to be bombed into going to war.
As a typical American, before 9/11, I was like, you know what, just set it out. You could all just fall into the middle of the sea, and it doesn't matter to me, because you're always fighting. Now 9/11 happened, I thought, gee, maybe I should pay attention to this.
So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center. Other not ideologies don't do that.
You look at Larry Silverstein, who's a terrific owner in New York and a very good friend of mine who I just called. I was very worried about him because I assumed maybe he was in the building. He took possession of the building 1 week ago. As you know, he just bought the World Trade Center.
Right.
And he was in his office, and he was getting ready to move into the World Trade Center over the next 2 weeks. So,
where were you on September 11th?
You know, I was home. And the only reason I wasn't where I was every morning, subsequent to the 26th day of July, my mornings were spent usually at a breakfast meeting at Windows, and so my mornings were spent at the Trade Center, and then by noon I was back uptown, and so that particular morning, because I have light-colored hair and fair skin, and I'm an annuity to the dermatologist, my wife, God bless her, had made an appointment for me at the doctor. And I remember dressing to go to the doctor, and finally saying to my wife, I said, sweetheart, I've got so much to do downtown. I got to cancel this. I've got to go downtown. And she said, you're not going to cancel this appointment. You're going to the dermatologist.
What terrorists do is target the innocent deliberately. And therefore, my definition of terrorism is the systematic and deliberate attack, the murder, maiming, and menacing of innocents, civilians, for political goals. You can tell a lot about terrorists, but what happens when they come to power? Those who fight for freedom and come to power do not impose terrorism. Those who do, who fight in terroristic means, end up as being masters of terrorist states.
Now to an urgent warning for millions of Americans after the genetic testing company 23andMe filed for bankruptcy. New York's Attorney General is raising concerns about security, urging everyone with an account to delete their data. Here's ABC's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, New York Attorney General Letitia James is joining a chorus of voices warning millions of users to delete their data and destroy DNA samples held by 23andMe. It comes after 23andMe declared bankruptcy, raising concerns over whether the genetic testing company can protect its customers.
This bankruptcy announcement is certainly a privacy nightmare for consumers. DNA data is some of the most sensitive data that any of us ever create about ourselves.
What does DNA even stand for anyway?
For nearly 20 years, people trying to trace their ancestry and susceptibility to hereditary diseases have been sending 23andMe DNA samples. People like Janie Deck.
I want answers, and I think it would only be equitable and fair that they tell us exactly what's happening with their information.
23andMe says there are no changes to how we store, manage, or protect customer data. With 23andMe, account holders can log in, delete their data, and request destruction of their DNA. Any problems? Call your state attorney general's office.
Can you believe this is the footage they said was a real look at the stars in 1962? This was Project Stargazer, a U.S. Air Force experiment where Captain Joseph Kittinger and astronomer William White floated to 82,000 feet in a high-altitude balloon. The goal? To observe the stars without atmospheric interference, before space telescopes even existed. But the mission wasn't just about looking at stars. Stargazer was designed to test how well astronomers could make observations from near space, long before modern technology made it easier. The two men were crammed into a tiny open gondola, wearing bulky pressurized suits to survive the extreme cold and lack of oxygen. They spent over 18 hours at the edge of space using specialized telescopes to study planets, stars, and atmospheric effects, all while suspended in near silence, thousands of feet above Earth. It was one of the earliest human experiments in high-altitude astronomy, setting the stage for future space-based observation. So why is this the footage that was shown if they could film something genuine? Surely nobody's going to come here and defend it?
Where are we?
I want to go home.
What the hell is going on?
What are they doing to her?
The dust has only just begun to fall. Crop circles in the carpet, sinking feeling.
I want to see my wife.
Spin me round again and rub my eyes. This can't be happening when busy streets a mess with people would stop to hold their heads heavy.
She had a gentle way about her.
If I was Jewish and had never stepped foot in Israel, I could claim citizenship there tomorrow. But 6 million people whose origins are in what you now call Israel, who were forced out in 1947 or 48, do not have that right. Because you deny them the right to return to their homes and to their land and to their villages, and that they have a legitimate claim, even under international law, to return, but you deny them that right. Why do you deny them that right? And why do you give that right to other people who have no connection whatsoever with the land, whether you call it Israel or whether you call it Palestine? Now, why don't you just admit that Hamas didn't exist when the first Intifada took place. But the ordinary Palestinians rose up because you denied them basic rights. I lived there. It was apartheid. It was racism. It was endemic. It was rotten. Are you not just taking us, Ambassador, for idiots? That you can say with a straight face, we're serious about peace, but while we're serious about peace, we're going to seize Palestinian land. Well, what they've asked for is to lift the siege of Gaza. Just to lift the siege of Gaza. Let them have an airport. Let them have ports. Let them not be dictated to by a government for whom they do not vote as to what can go in and out of their territories, whether they will have power, whether they will have clean water, whether they will have medicine. What makes you think you're allowed to have nuclear weapons and the fourth biggest army in the world and visit destruction on the people of Gaza, but they have no right to defend themselves?
The Corporation of Israel expires on October 31st, 2023. There is a difference between a company and a corporation. Israel registered themselves as a corporate entity in 1947. You cannot register a corporation twice under the same name in 2023 after 70 plus years and it be accepted, which means on October 31st, Israel as a corporation will expire. Once a corporation is formed, it is a legal entity that exists separately from its owners. This means that it has its own name, tax ID number, and legal rights and obligations as a corporate structure. Israel is bankrupt. When you are in that status, you have zero contract rights. The corporation expires on October 31st. You cannot re-register the corporation. If you were involved in human trafficking, that means your assets are frozen. You thought this was only for businesses and companies? No, governments too. Why do you think Israel Parliament has been dissolved? A corporation is owned by shareholders who hold shares in the company, while a company is typically owned by individuals or partners. You cannot register a corporation two times under the same name. So, Israel as a corporation expires October 31st, 2023. Because America has been under Israel occupation, the President of the United States can issue an executive order blocking the assets of the company or corporation, Israel in the United States, or in possession or control of U.S. persons. This means that anything regarding land, agencies, government, business companies that Israel owns are seized by the U.S. government. This means America will be free on October 31st, 2023, and then we can form our own real government without Israel intermingling on our affairs.
Forgive me for the harm I've caused before.
I am a person. You are not.
Tonight, an investigation into the tragic and unexpected death of a former U.S. attorney in Virginia.
Any additional units to assist fire for the cardiac arrest. Female found in bed, unresponsive, not breathing.
43-year-old Jessica Aber was found unresponsive inside her home by Alexandria police Saturday morning. Sources tell ABC News so far there's no indication of foul play and that the death appears to have been from natural causes.
Yeah.
The state medical examiner will determine her cause of death. Attorney General Pam Bondi posting to X, "The loss of Jessica Aber is deeply tragic. Our hearts and prayers go out to her family and friends during this profoundly difficult time." Aber was appointed by former President Biden as the top prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia in 2021. She and her staff of roughly 300 prosecuted a number of high-profile cases, including cyber and drug cases. She also prosecuted war crimes in Ukraine.
We at the Eastern District of Virginia are proud to stand with the Criminal Division as part of the Department of Justice's efforts to hold perpetrators of war crimes violations accountable.
Aber resigned January 20th of this year when President Trump took office.
And you know what? Fuck the fucking prices on everything. Fuck the prices on groceries. Fuck the prices on public transport. Fuck the prices on rent. Don't even get me fucking started on the prices on rent. I have so much bad things to say about the prices on rent. Fuck the prices on education. Fuck the prices on clothes. Fuck the prices on coffee. Why am I spending $7 on a cup of coffee and a little sweet treat? This isn't right. This is criminal.
Stop funding Israel!
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Witness will suspend.
The greatest threat to global security is Israel, and the whole world knows it. Stop funding Israel! Stop funding Israel! Stop funding Israel! Stop funding Israel!
So that protester was a code pink lunatic saying the greatest threat to world peace is funding Israel.
Since when everything became so damn expensive, you know, I go out of my apartment, $50, I say bye-bye. That's what I say. You know, I have not seen them since I went out. It's a pay for going the fuck out of my apartment. This is not right. What? Why? How did we come to this point in our lives?
Today the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them. They invented socialism, communism, human rights and democracy so that persecuting them would appear to be wrong, so they may enjoy equal rights with others. With these, they have now gained control of the most powerful countries, and they, this tiny community, have become a world power.
In a speech in 2003, you said, quote, "The Jews rule the world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them." In 2012, you wrote you were glad to be labeled anti-Semitic and that sympathy with Jewish victims of the Holocaust was wasted and misplaced. Isn't it the case that your political legacy, your accomplishments, will forever be tainted until you apologize and withdraw such anti-Semitic remarks?
No. I believe I'm speaking the truth. You look at America, it is totally dedicated to supporting Israel even when Israel commits international crime.
Mahathir Mohamad, should all Muslims be conflated with ISIL then? If everyone is collectively held responsible for the actions of people in their faith?
No, it shouldn't, because if we are not working in that direction. What I said was that the Jews are ruling the world by proxy.
That's an outrageous claim with no evidence.
Of course,
how can you say that Jews are ruling the world? That is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, is it not?
If you refuse to see evidence,
what is
then
your evidence?
I can help you.
What is your evidence for the fact that Jews are, quote, ruling the world?
Jews are not too many. There are not very many Jews in this world. By themselves, they cannot rule this world, but they can influence countries to do the work for them. And America is very much under Jewish influence. That is why it supports Israel. Whether Israel is doing the right thing or not, whether it commits crimes or not. Israel does all kinds of horrible things.
Okay, but your very reference to the Jews, many would say, is anti-Semitic. We'll have to agree to disagree on this.
My name is
Congressman Charles Lindbergh Sr., father of the famous aviator, helped lead the fight against the Federal Reserve Act. In 1913, he declared on the floor of the House,
"This act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. The invisible government by the money power proven to exist by the money trust investigation will be legalized. The money power overalls the legislative and executive forces of the nation. I have seen these forces exerted during the different stages of this bill. From now on, depressions will be scientifically created. The new law will create inflation whenever the trust wants inflation. If the trust can get a period of inflation, they figure they can unload stocks on the people at high prices during the excitement, and then bring on a panic and buy them back at low prices. The people may not know it immediately, but the day of reckoning is only a few years removed.
The day of reckoning, Lindbergh predicted, came in the great crash of 1929. The crash wiped out millions of small investors, but not the money trust. Warburg, Rockefeller, Morgan, Bernard Baruch, and other top insiders had already exited the market. Although friendly biographers attribute their perfectly timed departure to their fiscal wisdom, fiscal foreknowledge of the Federal Reserve policy they controlled rigged the game in their favor. The Federal Reserve nearly doubled the discount rate between January and August of 1929. The bankers also pressured stocks down by heavily selling the market short and massively calling loans on investors who had borrowed to invest in stocks, forcing the borrowers to sell stock to repay the loans. These tactics converged, generating a snowballing panic that would bring the entire country into the greatest financial depression since the Civil War. Congressman Louis McFadden, chairman of the House Committee on Banking and Currency from 1920 to 1931, had this to say.
It was not accidental. It was a carefully contrived occurrence. The international bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair here, so that they might emerge as rulers of us all.
Afterwards, the money trust returned to the market, exactly as Congressman Lindbergh predicted. They bought up stocks that once sold for $10 per share at $1 per share, widening their ownership of corporate America.
Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little ant. Did that hurt? Nope. Well, how about this one? Are you kidding? Well, how about this?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line.
I guess I'll just kill myself, never mind.
Do we have a problem?
I'm sorry, I'm just fucking this up.
Can't do this.
I'm so proud of you.
Guys, I can't do this!
I've always had this, massive crush on you.
I'm a fucking psycho. You're nothing.
I really love you.
Did you know that sugar, when you eat it, a donut, Pop-Tart, piece of bread, doesn't matter, Kool-Aid, Dr. Pepper, did you know that when you swallow sugar, they have known for 70 years that it goes inside your bone marrow and it suppresses within 45 minutes your body's ability to produce white blood cells that fight infections like bacteria, yeast, viruses, funguses, and parasites? Did you know that it literally shuts off your immune system and makes you more susceptible to all viruses, all infections? And did you know that they compared sugar to prednisone? Prednisone is a steroid. And do you know that its job is to suppress your immune system? In fact, it's called an immune system suppressant. Did you know that sugar suppresses your immune system more than prednisone does? So if you're trying to fight an infection, if you're worried about the bird flu in the future, and I find out you're eating
negative self-talk, constantly overwhelmed, stressed out, unable to focus, increased irritability, endless restlessness, neglect of responsibilities. I have ADHD and it used to control my life.
Here we go. Then it happened. The scales fell from my eyes.
Our lives can be filled with aspirations
for many good things, and it's right that we aspire to develop these virtues in our lives. But if we imagine we can cultivate any one of the virtues in isolation, then we will fail.
Good morning, Mark.
I fell asleep amid the flowers for a couple of hours on a beautiful day.
Money wins. Here's to us.
Why? Why do all this?
Why does anyone commit acts others deem unspeakable? For love.